Hey everybody, it's EJ from Eyedesyn.com, and today I'm going to be showing you how to create a plastic vinyl toy texture inside of Cinema 4D using none other than Octane Render. Holy crap, I'm finally on Octane. Let's check it out. Alright, so here's our little quote-unquote vinyl toy that we're going to be texturing today. And what we're going to be doing is creating a nice vinyl plasticky toy texture inside of Cinema 4D using Octane Render. So this is my first foray into Octane as far as a tutorial goes. So hold on to your butts. Let's just fire up our Octane live viewer here. And you can see we just have a completely untextured apple dude here. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and you can see how much of an Octane noob I am, because that's not how you do it. No, we create materials going to our live viewer window and grabbing materials here. And for what we want nice shiny materials. So we are going to go for our Octane Glossy. And we're going to go ahead and let's just apply this onto our apple like so. And let's just go in and go into our little options here, and we'll rename this apple, and we'll go into diffuse, and we'll give this a nice reddish orangish kind of apple material, kind of like that. And this is looking kind of okay. I mean, it's Octane, so even that clay render looked pretty dang good. But what we see is just a very subtle hint of a reflection. That's because we don't have anything in our scene really for our objects to reflect. So what I want to do is change that and go ahead and add a few lights. So let's just zoom out here. I'm in my 4-up view, and this is going to get unwieldy pretty quick. So I got this extra view here, so maybe I'll shrink them down. And again, we'll go into our objects menu and just get an Octane area light. And we're just going to go ahead and we're going to start painting with lights. We're going to put on our Bob Ross afro and play with our pretty lights. And let's just have a conversation with our lights and talk to our lights and figure out where their home wants to be. Where do they want to live? You have to figure that out. You have to talk to your lights. And we're just going to put this one right over here. We're just going to have this as a happy little rim light here. And that I think it's telling me its home's right here. And we're going to make this a very slivery, very small area light right there. And we get this nice little highlight on our apple friend here. And I'm going to stop. And you can see that we have a light in our scene that's a softbox, and now we have this nice reflection. Now we're just gonna bring down the power of that light because it's a little bit much, it's a little hot, so we'll maybe bring that power down to 11 or 15, something like that. And I don't want to see this in my render, so I can just go to my visibility options and just say no camera visibility, boom. And then that's gone, and our area box shape is finito. It's not showing up. And then what we can do, so this is our happy little rim light, and let's just duplicate this and make this kind of like a key light. And don't mind the wonkiness going on down here. I had to turn off like an object update setting because it kept crashing my 2013 Mac. Gee, I wonder why. But anyways, using my little eGPU render, eGPU setup, which I plan to do a tutorial on hopefully in the near future. But we're gonna play with our happy little key light over here, and talk to it, and we're gonna find out where its home is as well. And I think its home's right about here. Just gonna move that right there, and maybe make this a little bigger. All right, and I'm sure people out there are just like, please God, stop. And okay, I'll stop, and we're just gonna duplicate this key light, make this happy little overhead light, and just move this on top. And we just give it, he just wants a little overhead view of our little apple friend. See, I fooled you. I'm still doing it. It's still funny to me. And we'll just move that. So we got this nice little softbox highlight right back there. And Maybe we move this over here out of the way, the rim light, so we get like this really nice big lights kind of lighting the background too. So maybe we'll move this up so it's nice, kind of bringing our subject off the background. Again, we're having that wonkiness going on there, but that's looking good. We now have some lights, some soft boxes in our scene that we can now way better see how our reflection is working in our scene, right? All right, so let's go into our full view and start messing around with our materials here, because we got our lights. Now we just can start, futzing around with our material here, our glossy material. So our diffuse is good. This is not good. Hopefully that updates. Then we're going to go to our specular, and this is where we can actually like change the color of the specular. I'm just going to hit this again so maybe we don't have that wonkiness, but we can change the color of our specular if we want to by changing this from black. And maybe we can give this like a reddish tint, and that's way too red. So maybe we can just give it just a touch of, pink, light red in there. And that's if you want just a very subtle hint of specular in there. Do whatever you want, or you can just leave this black, and then you can actually adjust the float value here to kind of fade in our specular highlights that are showing up in there. So I think I'll just leave it like that. I won't introduce any color, but you can do as you want. But where the real magic happens with the whole plasticky vinyl look is in the roughness channel, because this adds a sense of realism. This is way too fake, kind of shiny plastic. And this is where we introduce a little bit of blur. So as I up this float value, you can see we have this really nice, introducing this grainy roughness here adds a lot more realism to our model. And if I just zoom in here, you can see how nice that looks going on right there. And you can see a little bit of grain. And of course, if you up your samples, all that grain will go away. But this just looks awesome to begin with because it's Octane. It renders so fast, and good luck rendering a fast, blurry reflection inside of physical render. This is just so snappy. But this is really where you can choose, just like Bob Ross, what are you feeling? Like, what is your vinyl toy texture? Is it super matte, or is it super shiny? It's all up to you and your happy little vinyl toy guy. But I think I want this fairly, shiny, but fairly diffuse and blurred. So I'll use like a float value of 0.2. But again, this is pretty, it looks way too perfect. You know what I mean? So what we're going to do is introduce a little bit of imperfections to this roughness to add a little bit more realism. And how we're going to do that is by loading up a, grunge map. And we'll just go to C40 Octane and image texture. Boom. And we'll load up just a nice like fingerprints texture. It's the same one I used in the donut tutorial that I did doing the physical render vinyl toy. So same one. There's a lot of grunge maps on the web, tons out there. I can definitely leave a link in the description for David Aryev's big, massive, happy list of resources that he uses. So I'll definitely link to that. But it's fairly easy to find these grunge maps anyway. So if I hit edit, you can see exactly what that looks like. I fingerprinted it myself. Not really. I don't know who did that. But you can see this looks so good. You can see what's happening is this image is acting as a matte and is kind of adjusting where, or defining where the shiny bits are and where the not so shiny bits, or where our blurred out parts of our material is. And just this alone adds a lot more wear and realism to our scene. I almost said realisticism. That's not a word. But we can also, if this is a little bit too much, Or actually, I think the first thing I see is maybe this grunge map's a little too little. So what we can do is just go into our image texture and go to UV transform. Click that little button, then we can go and twirl that down and maybe, scale this up to maybe 1.5. So something like that. So we get a little bit bigger. We kind of scale it up maybe to 2. So we have this really nice big grunge map now. And we can actually go back into our roughness. In this mixed texture, I think this is a little bit too pronounced. It's a little bit too grunged up for my taste. I think I want to make it a little bit more subtle of a grunge map. So the thing we can do is just kind of back that off by adjusting this mix value. And as I adjust the mix value, you can see that grunge map kind of goes back and is a little bit more subtle. And I think that's almost perfect. And I hate these garbledy-gook values, so I'm just going to even it out. It's one of my pet peeves, just really weird, long things. And Octane has a lot of those. So I'm very anal retentive. I'll always round up. So there we go. So like a 0.3 value mix, looking pretty dang good. All right, so the next thing we can do, we covered our roughness. The next thing we can do, and I'm just going to uncheck all these dang things that I do not need. So that there. The next thing we're going to do is to add that little sense of realism. Now, if you look, and again, this is all depending on do you want a matte finish kind of plastic or super shiny? But if you just have like an object in your office or whatever, and if you're like me, you actually have a ton of these vinyl toys all around. But if you look up super close to like a vinyl or a plastic object, you can see that it's pretty rough. It's almost like there's tiny, tiny, tiny little bumps or little noise bumps on your object to create that kind of roughness. So we can create roughness in 2 ways. We can do it in the bump or, just blurring out our reflection. But adding some noise in the bump adds that nice extra bit of like noisiness and imperfection to your vinyl toy render. So what I'm going to do is just go into my textures here and grab some C40 Octane noise. And you can see already this is kind of interesting. What's going on there? It looks pretty cool though. It adds, it does add a bit more imperfection to this for sure. It's a little bit too much though. The one thing I want to do is probably just up the octaves, and we're just going to use the Perlin one. I don't know why I said that like that, but it's a fun word to say, Perlin. And then you can adjust the omega and stuff like that. Which I'm really not going to do, I think. I'm just going to leave that kind of at the default. The one thing we could do to kind of back off how much of this bump there is, well, number one, this bump's way too big. But we'll come to that later. But I'm just going to back off how deep those bumps are by adjusting this gamma. And this is pretty finicky. The one thing I'd really, again, with these weird values is just how much, like, you could just go and move it like a tenth of a value or something, and it'll just completely change like crazy. So if I go all the way down, actually I think that looks pretty good. Like maybe a 0.1 is just enough. And you can see that we have a little bit of bumpiness. So that added bumpiness there with our, roughness grunge map really adds that sense that, hey, this is a real object. It has those imperfections. So that gamma of 1 looks good. But basically what I want to do now is make it so I can actually see the noise, and I'm going to scale it down. So I just want to like visually see, I don't want to set a keyframe, how this noise looks. So it's really big right now. I'm going to go and check the lock aspect ratio, aspect ratio. That's misspelled. Hey, aspect. We need to fix that. That's a bug. But yeah, aspect. Jeez, it's aspect ratio. Yeah. Okay, we're just gonna scale this down. Aspect ratio. Get it together, OTOY. Okay, so we're just gonna scale this down, and again, we can actually visually see what our noise is looking like. So maybe like a 0.01. And again, like I was saying, this is almost like a roughness, right? So we're almost like adding some roughness when we don't even need roughness, right? Because it's roughing it up via the actual bump channel. So again, this is way too much, so we're going to back off how much of this gamma there is. Maybe like all the way down to 0.01. Seems to be a recurring theme, the 0.01. But that looks pretty good. Pretty good. So maybe like 0.5. And you can see just how that jump of like adding that 0.01 and then that 5. You can see a little bit more. I actually like that. I think we can make out the noise a little bit more. It's still subtle, but I think that looks a lot more like a, vinyl-y kind of toy. So that's bump. And the last thing we're going to do is change the index of refraction to something higher. So looking up on the interwebs, I've found that, some vinyl toys, plastic is usually a value of like, 1.5, somewhere in there. Sometimes I like to make it a little bit shinier maybe. So maybe like 1.6. And kind of, again, see what look you're kind of going for. Actually, I think maybe a 0.6 is a little bit too much. So maybe it's, 4.5. So maybe we back off that index of refraction a little bit, but it adds a little bit more plasticity. Yeah. But yeah, this is looking pretty good. So now what we can do is maybe, we will add this texture, just change the color. So I'll just duplicate this, make a, the leaf color and make that, like a green. The diffuse here. So maybe like a greenish, bluish. And then just apply that to our leaf. Boom. And again, let's just add the, apple texture to the limbs here. So we got a lot more going on there. And then we'll duplicate this one more time and make the little stem material. So just duplicating that original apple material. Apply that right there. And then we don't want our little worm guy to be left out. So we'll go and make like a pinkish kind of texture here, just really quickly. So all this is just kind of choosing colors, whatever feels right to you. Let's just apply this to our worm friend. There we go. Cool. So the one thing I like to do, and I did this in the physical render tutorial with the donut dude, is it's nice to kind of, sometimes vinyl toys have two types of finishes on the toy. So maybe you'll have like a, matte finish on one of the objects, but then maybe the eyes are a little bit more plasticky, or shiny plastic. So that's exactly what we can do. And I think it adds a nice bit of contrast to your objects. So what I'm going to do, again, duplicate that apple material, and we'll make this the eye white. And let's just apply this on our eyeballs. Boom. And then we'll just change this to white. Change that diffuse to white. And one thing I'd recommend is not choosing 100% white. Maybe like 90, like 95% white, just because nothing in real life is 100% white or 100% black. Plus, it allows you a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to post effects and stuff like that, and crunching your curves and all that stuff. So I'll just choose like a, just like an off-white kind of thing. And let's just really quickly make a black diffuse material for our irises. And again, not 100% black there. Maybe, just a little bit of 8% gray in there. And let's just apply this to our irises here, just so we complete the look. There we go. Can I actually drag and drop that in there? I'm not going to try that. I don't know yet. Again, Octane noob here. I know how to texture stuff. I don't know all the ins and outs of this work shortcuts. But yeah, cool. So let's go into our eye whites. Let's just try. Boop. Nah, it didn't do anything. Okay, well, we experimented. We had to play. Oh, no, it did it. Okay, we can do that. That's a thing. Cool. Learning every day, right? Let's just do the lips. Yeah, cool. Sweet. All right, so back to business. Let's go into the eye whites. We're already there. The roughness. Let's bring down that roughness value. And again, we want like a very shiny texture. We could still, and actually, let's turn off the bump there completely because we don't, or maybe, no, let's just turn off the bump. We don't want any bump, get out of here. Roughness. Maybe again, just 0 roughness is a little bit too fake, so maybe it's a 0.1. And see what that looks like. And that's looking pretty good. And then maybe we still keep some kind of value for that mixed strength of our little grunge material. I think that's looking pretty good. So you can see that we have this nice highlight, and because, you know, really the only highlight you can see at this moment is that rim light off to the left here. So maybe what we can do is just so we can see what this reflective surface is going to look like, move our light a little bit forward. All right, so let's go to our 4-up view and just move our happy rim light right there, and maybe shrink it down. So now you're seeing a little bit more of how glossy our eyeball texture is. And actually, to be quite honest, I don't know how glossy that actually looks. So maybe we go back into our material here, and let's actually turn off the overhead, maybe the key, and just kind of focus on what's going on right here. So let's go back to our eye white, and maybe that blurriness is a little bit too much. Maybe that roughness is too much. Now we're kind of seeing a little bit more. Let's make this bigger. You see that little nice highlight going in there? You can kind of see it just a little bit. Again, this is where maybe we go to our diffuse and make this, you know, maybe a darker white, maybe a middle gray, so we can more see those bright little highlights there. So yeah, I think that's looking a lot better. The one thing we can do to add more sheen to this, of course, is just upping the index of refraction. We can see a lot more of that shininess coming through if we have like an index of 2 versus that 1.4 or 5 or whatever we had before. So way more glassy. So maybe that's a little bit too much, but you can definitely tell. Let's just zoom in here. Boop. You can definitely see that nice shininess happening right there. Maybe we can even pull this back a little bit more. So again, this almost looks like glass, but that looks like a nice plastic, and sweet, really sweet imperfections going on with that grunge map. So it almost looks like we got some scratches happening. You know, when you really get in here, you can really see all that realistic detail just using one grunge map in the roughness here. So again, maybe we can pull that back a little bit. Again, full numbers, it's maybe a 0.2, and then maybe just a tiny bit of roughness in here. So maybe like a 0.05. So that's looking pretty good, looking pretty realistic for like a shiny glossy toy. So we have the nice shiny eye bits here. Maybe we want the lips to be a little bit shinier too, so maybe we back off the roughness there as well. So we got a little bit shinier lips. We can turn back on our lights. And there we go. And you know, even maybe the worm dude we make a little bit shinier, because worms are slimy and gross creatures, so they'll be a little bit shinier. Cool. So there we go. We have our nice shiny vinyl material toy texture that we utilize the diffuse, specular, roughness, and bump channels, and some index of refraction, and to create this really nice, realistic looking vinyl toy using Octane in Cinema 4D. Alright, so we used Octane Render to create some really realistic vinyl plastic toy materials inside of Cinema 4D. played around with some grunge maps. We added some bump to the bump channel to make a very realistic looking vinyl toy model. Now, if you had any questions about anything I covered in this tutorial, be sure to leave them in the comments sections. And if you make anything, if you texture anything like a vinyl toy inside of Cinema 4D, I'd love to see what you guys are making. So be sure to share it with me on Twitter, Facebook, the Instagrams, all over the interwebs. Let me see what you guys are working on. And if you like this tutorial, please hit the like button. If you like what I'm doing here with all my tutorials, please subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you guys out there watching these tutorials. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, everybody.